Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, 2 draft breakdowns looking at what the Suns might be able to do if they pull off the impressive feat of actually getting a lottery pick. Plus, the way they're going to get it, well, that would be a Kevin Durant trade, and that seems to be coming quicker than we thought. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back in to Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Friday to close out your week. Don't forget, Locked On Suns free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer. Get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode, guys, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. More from FanDuel. Later on in the show, we've got 2 lottery-ish draft breakdowns, including one with a very peculiar, particular Suns connection. We've got some Kevin Durant, our daily Kevin Durant update to start with. Joining me to do it, as always, from the wonderful West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we doing, Ben Garcia?
Good, man. Just about 45 minutes ago, we get some news on KD, and I'll let you take the lead on this one, but holy cow, man. I cannot believe this is coming to fruition this quickly, but I guess the draft ain't that far away, so let's talk about it.
It's not. And if it's going to happen before the draft, it's 2 weeks from today when we're recording this. It'll be less than that by the time most of our everydayers are checking the episode out. So, yeah, Gambo reported that this is expected to go down next week. That's not a huge surprise for the reason we just said. But we're going to talk about one particular team that keeps coming up rather than just shrugging it off, which is what we've been doing a lot of the time when they come up on the show and break into it. But the part of the update, too, that I found interesting, Ben, on this KD side of things is Gambo seemed to answer one of the questions that you and I have had about this whole situation, which is that he said KD is not expected to direct his way to one team and one team only. That basically this list we've all been going off of for a little while now sort of is that group of teams he would generally be open to going to. And maybe they're all relatively equal. I don't know. Or at least equal enough that he would be okay going anywhere, and maybe the Suns still can drum up a market for him despite that.
Yeah, you saying that you're not surprised that a trade is going to potentially get down next week. I'm a little surprised. I'm a little shocked that this trade is coming to fruition this quickly. I thought it'd be a little bit of a like a buzzer beater, like 2 days before the draft, because I think the Suns were going to hold out for the best possible thing. Now, this tells me one of 2 things. One of 3 things, but the first one you already said, which was Kevin Durant's not going to force the Suns' hand to some direction, which is, I'm just going to be honest with you, it's really cool, KD. He doesn't have to do that. He's obviously seems like he has some respect for the organization, even what they did in February. But one of other 2 things is, to me, it feels like the Suns are potentially getting a better deal than you and I thought. Meaning, I think the Suns are like trying to run from this trade because maybe they think they're getting more back than they were originally. Like maybe they're getting Castle. Maybe they're getting an extra first round pick. I don't know. Maybe they're getting, I don't know, Şengün. That's crazy. But let's say that they're getting someone like that. I just thought it would come down closer.
So you think it's speeding up because they just like the offer so much that they're just going to say yes?
Yeah. Why would you
definitely see that. At the same time, I mean, all the teams that would probably go after him are eliminated. I never bought the OKC thing, so even if they lose the finals, I really don't see that. So everybody's on the market now. Everybody who could get him is up for grabs. And then the other part of it to me is like, well, we've known, the whole league has known he's available not just since April. They've known he is available since February. We're working through technical difficulties here. We're trying to record on our normal platform, even though it's kind of halfway down. So thank you guys for bearing with us. Rather than having it look really bad, it's going to just be this for now. And I think teams are just more like, what's going to change, right? I think that's part of it too. Potentially there's some kind of bidding war that you could try to get going, obviously, but I think at the same time, it probably, we've talked about how the list hasn't changed since April. I'm not sure how much the offers really could change since April. I mean, even you and I on this podcast have gone round and round. There's only so much each team can offer. So I think that's part of it too. But along those lines, one of the teams that Zach Lowe has brought up, that different people continue to add fuel to the fire on regarding the Suns, is the Minnesota Timberwolves. And as I said, instead of shrugging that off and just saying, wow, the cap stuff's so crazy, blah, 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 we're going to look at potentially a more feasible pathway here, Ben, because we've gotten frustrated, honestly, trying to think about, well, Julius Randle's a free agent, Naz Reid, the Jaden McDaniels doesn't make quite enough money to really make it happen, and all those different permutations. But one we haven't looked at is Rudy Gobert as the centerpiece. We've briefly mentioned it, but not in depth, and that's the one that people keep kind of alluding to here. Gobert makes $44 million this as of right now, which if this trade happens before the draft, then that's going to be the number. And then there's other combinations there. All of it has to be that one of these two teams at least gets under the second apron in order for this to be possible, or there's a third team involved. Like, that doesn't really change with this type of thing, but with Gobert and maybe somebody like Conley or DiVincenzo or Rob Dillingham, which we can talk about right now, if one of those guys, if it's those group, it doesn't have to worry about the free agency and the player options and everything else going on with the main group of guys we've been talking about. So really, I think it comes down to, do the Suns have a stomach to bring in Rudy Gobert?
I'm sure they have a stomach for it, but there's a price. And the price would be, then the question will be, okay, what would you do to take on Rudy Gobert? Rudy Gobert is probably a depreciating value now. He's, if I'm not mistaken, 32 years old, correct? Rudy Gobert age.
Sounds right. Yep, 32.
Yeah, 30. Okay, so Rudy Gobert is 32 years old. He's got a little over like 80 million left on his deal. He's got a player option in 2 years, so he's got about $100 million left on his deal, actually. He's a bad contract. He's depreciating.
Yeah, we don't have to
value.
count this season. He has $74 million left on his contract.
There you go.
Oh, no, you're right. Crap, I keep forgetting that Spot Track flipped over. We've come up against this a bunch of times. So you're right originally. Sorry.
So over $100 million. Yeah, over $100 million left on his deal. He's got that player option he's 100% opting into because he's going to be a depreciating value at that point. It kind of goes back to the 76ers thing that I lofted up early in this process, which was, are you willing to take Paul George, who's a much worse contract, it's not really close, and we're going to give you the number 3 overall pick? With the Timberwolves, it's going to be, will you please take Rudy Gobert and we will give you Rob Dillingham? That is the centerpiece in the deal. And at that point, you're telling yourself, because we don't know anything about Rob Dillingham. He barely played last year, which is still mind-boggling to me that they traded up to go get him because it didn't make any sense at the time. Are you willing to take this undersized guard that we don't know anything about? Or would you rather, or do you value draft picks? And at that point, you just lean on the scouting staff that the Suns, I'm assuming, had some of that last year too, because that's the only way I'd do it. I'm not taking Rudy Gobert back and 1 first-round pick and Dante DiVincenzo. I'm not joking with you. I would just rather keep Kevin Durant. No,
it's not enough.
It's not. No. Where would you land on that? Would you take Gobert back? Is it interesting to you at least to state, like, at least at that point, you have a very high floor? Is that interesting to you at all?
I don't mind it because he doesn't make a ton of money. Like, the contract extension that they just gave him, it goes down. So like I said, right now he's at 44, but when the part of it that you were mentioning going forward, he's at 35, then 37, then 38. And it's kind of a normal amount for a starting, like a good starting center, even though he's getting older. That's totally reasonable. And it would be tradable, in my opinion, outside of a significant injury. You could flip that without being super worried about it. I mean, this is a guy who's a huge floor raiser on the defensive end. It wouldn't be miserable to have him on the team, but it has to include young players or significant draft capital, which they don't even really have significant draft capital, but as much as they can manage in order for me to do that, like you said. It's funny to bring up Dillingham right now, right as we're about to get into our Jase Richardson breakdown, because it comes down to the same question that drafting Richardson would come down to, which is setting aside whatever the Suns' scouting approach might have been with Dillingham at last year's draft, to the extent that they even looked at him when they had no chance at drafting him. It's a small guard. Like, do you even believe philosophically as an NBA team anymore that you can survive with somebody that tiny as a key part of your team? I think that there's probably people in the league who would say that's just not, it's a no-go. We don't want anybody 6 feet tall to be a huge part of our team because of the way that the league's going. And the NBA Finals matchup we're watching could basically prove that to you, especially if that smaller player is not elite on defense. So it would all really hinge on Rob Dillingham. I'm not quite like you, where if I don't see somebody, I downgrade them. It feels like we had that kind of disagreement over Reed Shepherd.
Yeah.
To me, Rob Dillingham is still the same guy I thought he was a year ago in the draft. They're just a really good team that didn't need him. So if he happened to get drafted by a crappy team, when we would have seen him, and then how different would we have felt? Like, if he played poorly, I'd knock it. But he hasn't played at all. I'm going to assume he's still kind of the same level of player, and that just has to go to whether the Suns like him or not.
I don't want it to seem like I am degrading or downplaying Rob Dillingham. I think as a human, when I see something for a really long time, I get bored of it and I go, okay, what's behind door number 2? And in this draft, I would rather have Rob Dillingham than a first round pick from the Timberwolves, because it's not going to be a very good first round pick. But again, I don't know enough about Rob Dillingham to even make this, but when you tempt me with the 14th overall pick, I'm like, this draft's really good. Like, maybe Rob Dillingham in this year's draft is about what the Suns get this year. And so the Suns obviously did homework on Dillingham, so I would trust their scouting team like I would normally have to do, and I would do it. Like, if I got Rob Dillingham back, I think I need a pick, man. I can't do a trade for Kevin Durant and I don't get a pick back. So that's got to get figured out from someone else, even if it's just one.
They could send one,
and I do that. I probably would do that. I probably would do that, because I think Rob Dillingham is an interesting piece that they traded up for last year, who I'm not sure about, but a small guy. If he has an upside, I think he's 6'3". If he has an upside as a true, 3 or 4 piece on your team, yeah, I'll do it. I need a pick as well, especially in this draft.
They have 17 this year and 31. They have the first pick of the second round. Both of those would be pretty interesting. Not only 31, but hey, if you could get both, maybe then that starts to be interesting.
So then yeah, would you do that if you got both? I don't mean to spread you thin, but if you got both picks, you do that? Okay, I would too.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's get to Jase Richardson. We're going to talk about 2 players today who the Suns could get if they do pull off getting the 14th pick from San Antonio, the 10th pick from Houston, for instance, or I guess that 17th pick, potentially even from Minnesota. We'll start with Richardson next. First, today's show brought to you by Olipop. We all have an insane story about Olipop here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'll tell you in just a second. But it's a new type of soda made for people who love the classic taste of soda, but want something that actually supports their health. With just 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can, Olipop is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Traditional sodas are loaded with sugar. 39 grams in a regular Coke, 44 in an orange Fanta. But Olipop flips that script with just a fraction of the sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and gut-friendly ingredients like OliSmart, a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. It's a soda that tastes like the real thing, but actually does something good for your body. My wife and I are pretty big fans of Olipop. We've tried a bunch of the flavors before. She has some gut issues. I sometimes do because I drink a bunch of coffee and make myself feel like crap. And Olipop does make a difference. There's a ton of fiber. It's not super sweet and sickly. It doesn't feel as carbonated either. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not, but it feels much better and lighter for me. And Locked On delivered a massive amount. Olipop absolutely came in clutch. We've tried 4 new flavors: cola, Dr. What do they call it? Dr. I don't even know. You know what I'm talking about. It's the Olipop version, and it's much more delicious. So get a free can of Olipop for yourself. Buy any 2 cans in store, and they'll reimburse you for 1. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find some Olipop near you. That's drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Ben, let's keep it rolling.
Olipop stories, man.
Yeah, Olipop stories we'll have for a while. We're also managing these technical difficulties little by little. Let's start with Jase Richardson. He is a 6-foot freshman guard from Michigan State. A little on the older end for a freshman. He's going to be 20 on opening night. He's not, Devin Booker level, who turned 19 right after opening night. He's a little older than that. Obviously, I already said it, he is a Spartan. He is the son of Jason Richardson, not only a Michigan State legend with the Brian Gregory, Jordan Ott, Matt Ishbia contingent, obviously loving that, but also former Phoenix Suns legend who went to the 2010 Western Conference Finals and had a nice run here in the Valley, as people will remember. So a lot of connections. About time we talked about him. What did you like and dislike about Jase when you checked him out?
Oh, dude, he's just so I think Jase is, I know he's an undersized guard, and it's going to undercut a lot of the things I've said, because I'm big on 6'7" guys, and when it comes to drafting someone with the 14th overall pick, I think you're looking for someone that is like you and I talked before the show, someone that can be a 3, 4, and low end 5, potentially on a team that you're trying to contend at some point for a championship. This is a guy who his playmaking ability is like, it'll make your mouth drop. He passes the ball really effectively, especially for being a small guy, shoots the 3 ball so well to where in wide open 3-point shots, he shot 50% and shot 49% overall from the 3-point line, which shows right there, like, that I think is going to contribute 50% from wide open 3-pointers, should translate to the NBA.
One thing that was weird on that is he only took 3 threes a game. Now, some of the per game is a little weird. Yeah, it's Michigan State, and he didn't start even playing a lot and doing a lot until later in the season. So a lot of his stats are kind of hard to decipher almost. But yeah, his numbers were off the chart. His efficiency was crazy.
Yeah, he is. I think his splits were when he was on the floor, which kind of flows to those inflated stats a little bit. Per 100 possessions with him on the court, I think they had an offensive rating of like 132. It was something just absolutely bonkers. So an offensive guy who plays really tough, man. I know we talk about him being, they say he's 6'3". He's probably more 6'1", 6'2". But he kind of reminds me of Jalen Brunson in some respects, where he finished around the rim at 70%, being that tiny. He didn't really have a lot of trouble trying to pass around defenders. I remember watching multiple games where he's finding wide open guys for threes. He's one of my favorite prospects. The only downside is, and it's a really big downside, he's 6'1", he's got a 6'6" wingspan. That's not great. And defensively, I mean, he could get bullied. He could get picked on. And that's the one thing that kind of worries me with Jase Richardson, with Booker and him, is if those two guys in the backcourt, he will get picked on. All right, listen, you're going after my guy a little too much. The one question I guess
it's not even a negative. It's the reality. I mean, TJ McConnell's a really pesky defender, but if you have limited options on the court, you're going to go after TJ McConnell. It's just what it is. If he's short and small, that's what you got to do in the NBA.
He also had a problem, from one thing that I was reading that I didn't even realize. One of the things is he had a problem getting out on shooters too. Like, oftentimes he'd sag off of guys, almost getting worried that dudes would kind of take him to the rim. So maybe he wanted to have the first step on them, try to make it a little bit easier, but guys would just shoot over him. Defensively, I'm a little worried, and he doesn't really fit the Spartan way, which is kind of interesting that he played for Michigan State, because he's a scorer, he's a playmaker, plays around the rim fairly effectively. I really like Jase, man. If they took this guy at 14th or 10th overall, I would be ecstatic. But God, it is kind of hard to get over the 6'1" frame.
Yeah, you mentioned the finishing. In total, he shot 55% from 2. That includes, mid-range and everything. That's an elite number. Microscopic turnover percentage. I think it was around 8%, which is really, really good for somebody who was handling the ball and had as much of a workload as he did as a scorer. I was a little bit worried that his performance in the tournament was very up and down. Now I understand that it is a freshman, but it is also, if you're talking about a lottery pick, those are the standards to play well even against really good teams, even at a young age. So he had a 1 of 10 game and a 4 of 13 game in the tournament. That's a little bit worrisome. And yeah, you compare him to Brunson. I understand. I totally get what you're doing. He's obviously a lefty. The handle, I would absolutely agree, is also an elite characteristic for Richardson, the same way that it is for Brunson. The thing, though, that I think would differentiate that comparison, that I think bleeds into the defensive concerns, is he's pretty thin. He doesn't really use his body to create space for himself, get guys on his hip, or, when he is, those elite finishing numbers, those are nice to see, but it's not because of his physicality as a finisher. It's because he's just beating his man off the dribble, and he's able to be kind of acrobatic and smooth, getting up toward the basket and finishing. But he's not Allen Iverson or even, like you said, Jalen Brunson type guy where he's crashing into big men and just getting through them with his body. So, yeah, and he very much is in that class with Dillingham, Reed Shepherd, even to a lesser degree like a Peyton Pritchard. Like, it's hard for those guys to really cut through in the NBA. The bar is really high for how good you have to be on offense to make up for a lot of the limitations that you have, and you just got to bet that he's good enough to do that.
Yeah, here's one of the reasons why I think obviously he's going to have some issue, because you're right, wasn't banging into bodies when he's scoring. Even in his highlights, he's just kind of blowing by people. One of the reasons why I think that's not going to be as big of an issue in the NBA, it is going to be an issue, but because in the small sample size that we saw, that he's such an elite shooter, guys are going to have to come out on him. They're going to have to crash out on him. And if you end up getting a bigger body on him, you switch a power forward or a center, a guy that's not as good laterally, he's going to blow by those guys. And what's going to happen? Guys are going to crash in on him, and his playmaking ability is going to be able to find Devin Booker in the corner. So because he's such a good shooter, and
even
pick
that
and pops,
playmaking ability, though, 2 assists per game.
Listen, man.
Some kind
he
of
was asked to be a lot. He was asked to be a lot of the offense, and he's out there. He's asked to be. Yeah,
of course. But I'm just saying. Then I'm not saying like it necessarily as a negative. I'm just saying, how do we know it's a positive? We can't just assume he's a good playmaker.
No, but when you see, and this is where I think watching some of the highlights that he's done does come into play. When those types of things happen, when guys crash into him and they're all over him, he makes these insane no-look passes. He had one against Purdue, man, where 2 dudes are crashing on him down in the paint, and he kicks it over to the guy in the left wing, and dude spots up and hits a 3. Like, I don't need to see the volume of it, because I know at Michigan State he was kind of asked to be the scorer when he played. I just need to see that he has some ability to do that, and his highlights are littered with that. So I agree, but one of the reasons why I like him is because at the 14th overall pick, again, he's 20 years old. That's not old. He's 20 years old, and I think he has a high ceiling of potentially being one of those really good players. Again, that comes with kind of a low floor, where if he can't be just a shooter in the NBA. He's too small. He's got to add some other element.
He has to create his own shot. He has to be an elite shot creator for himself. He has to be able to score against elite defenses consistently. That's like, think of the guys who are even a step above what I've talked about, like Lillard, or, that's another. He doesn't have to be that good.
Steph.
But yeah, Steph is a whole other beast.
Like, I agree. I'm just
screens,
small guy. Yeah.
But the guys who can handle the ball, create a shot for themselves in the pick and roll, it's a select few dudes, and it's like you said, boom bust for sure. He's 24th on the Ringers list. He's 17th on the Athletics list. He's 10th on the Yahoo Sports list. I would say I'm probably closer to middle of the first round for him personally. I would, if the Suns got the 10th pick from Houston, for instance, I probably would want them to look elsewhere.
Let's say that they get the 14th pick. Let's cut it in half. 14th overall pick, Jase Richardson is on the board. Who are they taking?
Well, Of
Jase
course they're going to be biased. I mean, we
Jase
know that by now. Yeah, Jase. But in terms of my analysis, I might not even love him at 14, depending on who's available.
Wow.
I think there could be better options. I mean, it's one, like, I can like him and still think other guys are better. It's just
Well, there also is the risk of it. The Suns don't have a lot of picks. It's a risky pick. Do you want to cash your chips in there, or do you think you want to go on someone with a little bit of a higher floor? I get that.
All right, let's get to Cedric Coward, our next draft breakdown of the day. Somebody that they could get at 10, 14, or pay maybe even 29. We'll see. Next. First, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA Finals are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game. Before tip-off and even live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Let's check out what's going on in the world of the WNBA here on this lovely Friday. I've been telling you, just smash the favorites. The W is in this weird place where there's really, really good teams, and then there's a bunch of have-nots, and that's just the reality. The Atlanta Dream at home on Friday, minus 800 favorites against the woeful Chicago Sky. Smash that minus 800. Hopefully, nab your bonus bet. $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's all at FanDuel.com/LockedOnNBA to get started. Check it out for yourself. Then have some fun with finals bets, baseball, whatever you love. $5 bet at FanDuel.com. If it wins, $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Ben, we survived that segment with no technical difficulties. I'm very, very impressed with us there. That has nothing to do with our talent, but I'm going to take credit for it anyway. Let's get to Cedric Coward, the Washington State forward, 6'5", senior, 22 years old on opening night. Definitely on the older end, but back to the wings and forwards that you and I have mostly been focused on in terms of what we expect the Suns to target, but frankly also I think a good thing for them. What this draft seems to be heavy with. There's a lot of those types of dudes, which I think is good for the whole league because everybody's targeting those kinds of guys lately, but the Suns have very, very few of them, so it should be good. What did you think diving in on Coward? Because we talked about the what we like or what we want in more of a late lottery pick versus a upside shot at something like 29. To me, Coward has a much higher floor, and he can plug into any type of team. I feel very good that he could be a starter on an NBA team for a long time. And that checks a lot of boxes for what I want if I'm the Suns and I'm able to get another pick in the lottery, but not quite at the very, very top where I'm going to get a potential superstar. I kind of like going this route and saying this guy is just... He's just gonna work.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you that he's got a very high floor. And I again would echo that I think he works legitimately everywhere. He is not going to be what I think Jase Richardson could be. Now, again, there's a difference between like Jase Richardson has a lower floor, Cedric Coward's got a high floor. I think this guy is what he is. As someone that plays basketball, and I can appreciate. Like, I'm not this freaking amazing hooper, obviously, but I can appreciate when I'm hooping at my local gym and I see some dude shoot the ball and I'm like, damn, he's got kind of a pretty shot. It's the first thing I thought of when I was watching some Cedric Coward stuff. And then immediately the guy that's voiceovering it was like, this guy's got a pretty shot. So not a very good. I noticed that right away too. Didn't seem like he was super confident with the ball in his hands, like playmaking for himself, but could hit it open three. I didn't love, here's why I wouldn't take this guy early at 10 or 14 or whatever, so on. He's 22 years old. He played for Eastern Washington and Washington State. I don't think that level of competition should warrant you the 14th overall pick or 10th overall pick when you're 22 years old as a senior, because he kind of is what he is. I don't even think he's a great defender either. I think he's just really big. 7'2" wingspan, 6'6". He'd be interesting. I wouldn't be super against the pick, but I just would want someone, I think, with a little bit more upside. Let's say you.
Yeah, let's home in on the competition thing. he is in the West Coast Conference. If somebody was 22 and was coming from Gonzaga, would you say that was not good enough competition? Because it's the same conference.
Yeah, but I'd be able to say that dude got an offer from Gonzaga. This dude didn't get an offer from Gonzaga.
If the performance was exactly identical, it matters where he got an offer, that Mark Few liked him.
Yeah, it does to me matter that Mark Few
doesn't matter to me at all. I think if he's good, he's good. I think if you like the talent, you like the talent. I feel like the Phoenix Suns are like the picture perfect example recently of a team where it's proven that guys being 21, 22, even 23 when they get drafted does not mean that they are what they are. Cam Johnson got significantly better when he got to the NBA. Mikal Bridges got significantly better when he got to the NBA. I think that's one of the biggest things I think about the draft is I really don't agree with the concept that an older guy is therefore a low ceiling player. And I also would say with Coward that the fact that he started in a smaller school and was kind of a late bloomer would lead you to think he has more upside than some other guys who have already, like he had a shoulder injury that forced him to miss some time. He only played 6 games this year. We should say all these numbers we're talking about at Washington State, it was only 6 games. And so like the fact that we haven't seen him a ton almost would make me more bullish that he can get better versus a guy who's been like Nick Richards or something. When he went to school, he went to Kentucky. He ended up staying an extra year. He was a high-profile guy all the way through. That's the type of dude where I'm like, I don't know how much better he's going to get because we've already seen so much of him. I feel like it would have happened. But whereas this, so I think he's a pretty high-ceiling guy still. I actually like that he dominated the West Coast Conference. Again, only 6 games, but he scored 18 points a game. Blocked 5% of shots while he was out there, made 40% of his threes, 4 assists a game as well. Like he filled up the stat sheet like you would want to see from a dude who's older than everybody he's competing against. And I just think he's really, really well-rounded. And I like that he can chip in a lot of places. I would actually say that the thing would be most worried about is, like you were saying, you're not sure how great he really is on defense or if he's just big. I actually think like his style of play, I would like him to be a little bigger. I think the fact that he does seem to be more of a low usage kind of 3-and-D role player type of guy, I would prefer if that type of dude was 6'8", 6'9", and can really impact the game with his size. Whereas 6'5", 6'6", you're talking about more of like, Jay Crowder or something like that, having to kind of make up for his lack of size a little bit. And he's not like a fluid athlete. He's big and can kind of get at you physically, but he's not like
it's like fundamental,
more fundamental around the court, laterally like that, like J-Dub in Oklahoma City or something. So, yeah, those are kind of my thoughts, but I definitely wouldn't say no to him just because of his level of competition or his age. I think that's where you get into trouble.
Who does he remind you of? Like, is there a player that came to mind when you're watching him?
There's a ton. I mean, he's just kind of that picture perfect.
He kind of reminds me a little bit of OG
player.
Reminds me a little bit of OG.
Perfect. I think that totally. He's not. But that's the thing. OG Anunoby's like 6'8". He played center at Indiana when he was in college. So that's exactly the difference I'm talking about. You think he's that big because he kind of plays like he's that big, but in the NBA he's going to get dwarfed a little bit.
Well, 7'2" wingspan. I think a lot of that's going to come into play for him as well. To just also put on the point of like, because I want to build off some of the things you're saying as well, is like, just because he's 22, maybe he's just a late bloomer. The guy did forego Duke. He was supposed to play at Duke this year. Decided he was going to go into the draft. So I agree with you. I think you and I just have different philosophies, at least right now when it comes to drafting a little bit earlier. If I can get up earlier in this spot, I think this draft is really good. One of the better drafts over the last couple of years. And I think you should be aiming for a star. And from what I saw with Coward, because of his playmaking ability, I don't think jumped off the charts to me. Athletic ability didn't really jump off the charts to me. And his dribbling, well, that runs into playmaking. He seems more of like a player who's going to fit everywhere. And I think if the Suns got him, he would absolutely work here. I want someone with a little bit more oomph in the ceiling department that maybe you think he has that I'm not so sure about.
Yeah, and look, I'm not trying to say he has a ceiling because I've scouted him deeply. I just think like you're talking about a philosophy. My philosophy in general is that guys who are 22 can be way better by the time they're 28. I don't care how old somebody is to say. I mean, we're still talking about kids. You know what I mean? It's not Brandon Whedon. You know what I mean? Or something like that. We're talking about if he's 20, he has a high ceiling. If he's 2 years older, suddenly he's a finished product. I just think it's kind of, it feels a little silly. But
he's not 28. You're right. He's not 28.
Yeah, exactly. So I would totally draft him at 10 or 14. I would like him. I do like him more than Richardson.
Okay. All right. I don't want to go after you too hard there because I'm such a big 6'7", 6'6" guy, and the 7'2" wingspan is really interesting. If I'm not mistaken, it's like one of the better ones in all of the draft combine or in the draft profiles that I was looking at. So I like him. I don't think he's bad. I just think the ceiling is a little bit more capped on him than other players, and I want someone who with the potential of being like a really good 3 in the NBA. And I understand that is shooting for the stars, but I think that's what you should be doing at the 14th overall pick, whether at 29 or even if the Suns are picking at 23, would be all in on this guy because I need someone that can hit. I don't care how old they are.
That'll wrap us up. Hit follow, hit subscribe if you have not already. Become an everydayer. We got shows galore coming up. Kevin Durant trade right around the corner, and the draft less than 2 weeks away. Enjoy your weekend, folks. We'll catch you next time.